Hello friends, in this video we are going to discuss about biogeochemical cycle with one example of nitrogen cycle. Explain biogeochemical cycle with one example of nitrogen cycle. Biogeochemical cycle. Energy flows directly through ecosystems, entering as sunlight or inorganic molecules for chemoautotrophs and is released as heat during transfers between trophic levels. Instead of flowing through an ecosystem, the material that makes up living organism is conserved and recycled. The six most common elements associated with organic molecules are carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, phosphorus and sulfur. Take a variety of chemical forms and can exist for long periods of time in the atmosphere, on land, in water or beneath or surface. Geological processes such as weathering, erosion, drainage and subduction of continental plates all play a role in the cycling of elements on Earth. Because geology and chemistry play a major role in the study of this process, the recycling of inorganic materials between living organisms and their non-living environments is called the biogeochemical cycle. Water, which contains hydrogen and oxygen, is essential for all living processes. The hydrosphere is the region of Earth where movement and storage of water occurs as liquid water at the surface of rivers, lakes, oceans, and below the surface, groundwater or ice, polar icebergs and glacier, and as water vapor in the atmosphere. Carbon is found in all organic macromolecules and is an important component of fossil fuels. Nitrogen is a major component of our nucleic acids and proteins and is vital to human agriculture. Phosphorus, a major component of nucleic acids and is one of the main ingredients along with nitrogen in artificial horticultures used in agriculture, which has an environmental impact on our surface water. Sulfur, important for the three-dimensional folding of proteins, as in disulfide binding, is released into the atmosphere by the burning of fossil fuels. The cycling of these elements is interconnected. For example, water movement is important for the leaching of nitrogen and phosphate in rivers, lakes and oceans. The ocean is also a major storehouse of carbon. Thus, mineral nutrients are rapidly or slowly cycled through the entire biosphere between the biotic and abiotic worlds and from one living organism to another. Nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen is difficult to obtain in the living world. Plants and phytoplankton are not equipped to incorporate nitrogen from the atmosphere, which exists as a tightly bound triple covalent N2. Even though this molecule comprises about 78% of the atmosphere, nitrogen enters the living world through free living and symbiotic bacteria which incorporate nitrogen into their macromolecules through nitrogen fixation, conversion of N2. Cyanobacteria live in most aquatic ecosystems where sunlight is present. These play an important role in nitrogen fixation. Cyanobacteria are able to use inorganic sources of nitrogen to fix nitrogen. Rhizobium bacteria live symbiotically in the root nodes of legumes such as peas, beans and peanuts and provide them with essential organic nitrogen. Free-living bacteria such as Azotobacter are also important nitrogen fixers. Biological nitrogen is particularly important for the study of ecosystem dynamics because many ecosystem processes such as primary production and decomposition are limited by the available supply of nitrogen. The nitrogen that enters living systems by nitrogen fixation is eventually converted from organic nitrogen back into nitrogen gas by bacteria. This process occurs in three stages in terrestrial systems: ammonization, nitrification and denitrification. First, the ammonization process converts nitrogenous wastes from the remains of living animals or dead animals into ammonium by some bacteria and fungi. Second, this ammonium is converted to nitrites through nitrification by nitrifying bacteria such as Nitrosomonas. Subsequently, nitrites are converted into nitrates by same organisms. Finally, the process of denitrification occurs, whereby bacteria such as Pseudomonas and Clostridium convert nitrates into nitrogen gas, thus allowing it to re-enter the atmosphere. Human activity can release nitrogen into the environment by two primary means: combustion of fossil fuels, which releases various nitrogen oxides, and in agriculture by the use of artificial fertilizers which contain nitrogen and phosphorus compounds, which are then washed into lakes, streams and rivers by surface runoff. Atmospheric nitrogen is associated with many effects on Earth's ecosystems, including the production of acid rain in the form of nitric acid, HNO3, and greenhouse gas effects in the form of nitrous oxide N2O, which potentially causes climate change. A major effect from fertilizer runoff is salt water and fresh water eutrophication, a process whereby nutrient runoff causes overgrowth of algae and many consequent problems. A similar process occurs in the marine nitrogen cycle, where ammonization, nitrification and denitrification processes are carried out by the marine bacteria and archaea. Some of this nitrogen falls into the ocean floor in the form of sediment, which may be carried over to land in later geologic time by offlate of the Earth's surface, and thus incorporated into terrestrial rock. Although the movement of nitrogen from rock directly into living systems has traditionally been viewed as insignificant compared to fixed nitrogen from the atmosphere, a recent study has shown that this process may indeed be important and has been referred to as a global nitrogen release, should be included in any study of the cycle. This is the diagram that briefly describes about the nitrogen cycle.